Kimberly Proctor was a Canadian girl born on April 24, 1991, in Victoria. She was the daughter of Fred and Lucia Proctor. She had a younger brother named Ryan and a large extended family that loved her dearly. Kimberly was a friendly, outgoing, and compassionate person who enjoyed spending time with her friends and family. She had a passion for animals, especially cats, and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She also liked music, movies, video games, and reading. She was a fan of the Twilight series and Harry Potter. Kimberly attended Pacific Secondary School in Langford, where she worked hard to achieve her goals. She was involved in various school activities, such as drama, choir, and photography. She has also supported the rights and dignity of all people around her. Kimberly suffered from depression and anxiety and had attempted suicide twice in the past. She was also bullied at school and online by some of her peers. She had been receiving counseling and medication for her mental health issues and was trying to cope with her challenges. Kimberly Proctor left her regular high school, Belmont Secondary, in grade 11 and transferred to Pacific Secondary, an alternative school that offered more flexibility and support for students with diverse needs. Her parents made this decision because she felt overwhelmed and stressed by the academic and social pressures at Belmont. She also wanted to pursue her passion for animals and veterinary science, which Pacific Secondary offered as a program. She graduated from Pacific Secondary in June 2009 and was planning to attend Camosun College in the fall of 2010. On the other side, in Kimberly's new class, there was a student named Cruz Wellwood. He was a Canadian boy who was born on July 14, 1993, in Victoria, BC. He was the son of Robert Deswan and Kelly Wellwood, and the grandson of Sandra Wellwood. He had a younger sister named Kyla and a half-brother named Jesse. Cruz had a troubled and traumatic childhood, as he was exposed to violence, abuse, and neglect from an early age. His father, Robert Deswan, was a convicted rapist and murderer who killed a 16-year-old girl named Cherish Oppenheim in 2001 when Cruz was 8 years old. Cruz witnessed his father's arrest and trial and was later told by his mother that his father was dead. His mother, Kelly Wellwood, was a drug addict and an alcoholic who often left Cruz and his sister alone or with strangers. She also physically and verbally abused Cruz and blamed him for his father's crimes. Cruz was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and oppositional defiant disorder, OD, and was prescribed medication, but his mother often failed to give it to him. Cruz also suffered from nightmares, flashbacks, and suicidal thoughts. In the same school, Cruz met Cameron Moffat, a boy with the same mentality as him, who became his best friend and accomplice. They bonded over their mutual disdain for a teacher. While Cruz was wiry and intelligent, Cameron was a hulking, slow learner who suffered from ADHD. A psychiatric report later revealed that Cam had been sexually abused at age 4, although it was not publicly revealed by whom. Cameron resisted counseling and meds. He began lashing out at home and cutting himself to relieve stress. He was increasingly menacing at school too, bringing a knife to class. Cruz and Cameron shared a fascination with violence, gore, and death, and often played violent video games, watched horror movies, and read books about serial killers. They also chatted online with each other and other people, using MSN Messenger and World of Warcraft, where they expressed their dark fantasies and hatred towards women. Cruz had a crush on Kimberly, but she rejected him. He then became obsessed with her and harassed her online. Cruz Wellwood and Cameron Moffat planned to lure Kimberly Proctor because they had a twisted fascination with violence, gore, and death, and they wanted to fulfill their dark fantasies and take revenge on her for rejecting Cruz. They also had a history of violence, abuse, and neglect in their families, and they were influenced by their violent media consumption. They plotted to and murder her for months, and they showed no remorse or empathy for their actions. Cruz Wellwood lured Kimberly Proctor on MSN by pretending to be interested in her and asking her to come over to his house. He also lied to her that his mother was home and that he had a gift for her. He used flattery, manipulation, and deception to persuade her to meet him. The boys, Cruz Wellwood and Cameron Moffett, lured Kimberly Proctor to Wellwood's home on March 18, 2010, by pretending to be interested in her and lying to her on MSN. Shortly after arriving at the house, the boys struck, kicking and hitting Kimberly as they bound her hands and ankles. Cruz stuffed a sock in Kim's mouth, which he then wrapped in duct tape. They took turns and sexually assaulted her, tortured her over several hours using various weapons and methods. They also recorded some of their actions on a digital voice recorder. They mutilated her with a knife for hours and stuffed various things into her genitals. They stuffed her body in a freezer. They kept Kim there for hours until she died from suffocation. The details were very disturbing and gruesome. They carried her in a hockey bag on public transit to a hiking trail where they set her deceased body on fire under a construction bridge. Kimberly's family reported her missing after she failed to return home from school, as it was unlikely to reply to her mother's text. The police launched a search and interviewed her friends and acquaintances. On March 20, 2010, two cyclists discovered burned remains by the edge of a creek and alerted the police. The police identified the body as Kimberly Proctor through dental records. The police collected forensic evidence from the crime scene, such as DNA, fingerprints, and accelerants. They also traced the bus route that the killers used and obtained surveillance footage from the bus and nearby businesses. The police analyzed Kimberly's online activity and found messages from Cruz and Cameron, who had used aliases and fake profiles to communicate with her. They also found disturbing online chats between the killers, where they discussed their fantasies of and killing girls and their plans to murder Kimberly. Police found a WordPress blog that was posted by Cruz and was entitled Early Warning Signs of a Serial Killer. He listed common traits, including animal abuse, fascination with fire, abandonment by a father, and an intense interest in sadomasochistic. He wrote, "The peculiar thing is I meet all 14 criteria of a serial killer," he blogged. Apparently, though meeting all criteria makes it unlikely for the subject to be a serial killer, I suppose only time will tell. The police arrested both the boys on June 18, 2010, and charged them with first-degree murder, sexual assault, forcible confinement, and indignity to human remains. They also searched their homes and seized computers, phones, clothing, and other items. The police interrogated the suspects and obtained confessions from both of them. Cameron admitted to his role in the murder in a video-recorded statement, while Cruz wrote a detailed account of the crime in a notebook. The police also found evidence that the killers had tried to lure another girl to Cruz's home on the same night they killed Proctor, but she refused to go. They also learned that both the boys had histories of violence, mental illness, and extreme drug addiction, and had been involved in previous incidents at school and home. The boys, Cruz Wellwood and Cameron Moffett, were charged with 4 counts: first-degree murder, sexual assault, forcible confinement, and indignity to human remains 1. They pleaded guilty to all the charges and were sentenced as adults to life in prison with no chance of parole for 10 years. The murder of Kimberly Proctor had a devastating impact on her family and the community. Her parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins, and friends were left heartbroken and traumatized by the loss of their loved one. They had to endure the horror of hearing the details of her torture and death, and the frustration of dealing with the justice system that gave her killers a chance at parole after only 10 years. They also had to cope with the stigma and harassment that came with the publicity of the case. The community was also shaken by the brutality and senselessness of the crime. Many people felt unsafe and angry, especially the young people who knew Kimberly or her killers. The community also rallied to support Kimberly's family and to demand justice and change. They organized vigils, memorials, petitions, and campaigns to raise awareness and prevent violence against women. The community was also shaken by the brutality and senselessness of the crime. Many people felt unsafe and angry, especially the young people who knew Proctor or her killers. The community also rallied to support Proctor's family and to demand justice and change. They organized vigils, memorials, petitions, and campaigns to raise awareness and prevent violence against women. Make sure to subscribe. This will help me a lot in making videos like these. Also, check out the cases which pop up on screen.